Oh man, you guys. So that last problem, example 5 was just too easy, right? It just got over way too fast. So we need to step it up a notch. So guys, example 6, again, when we divide with two fractions, essentially after we do this first step, the keep, change, flip, then it just turns into a multiplication problem, which you guys are pros at. So let's get started. Okay, so keep, change, flip. We keep the first fraction the same, change division to multiplication, and then we're going to flip the second fraction or find the reciprocal. Okay, so let's do that first. Okay, so I'm going to keep my first fraction the same. So I have a 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 all over x squared minus 9. Okay, my division is going to change to multiplication. Okay, so it changes. And then we are going to be flipping our second fraction. Okay, so we're going to find the reciprocal of this. So the denominator is going to slide into the numerator, and the numerator will slide into the denominator. So this is going to be 8x squared minus 28x plus 2. Okay, and then over 4x squared minus 1. All right, so if you remember how to do example 4, when we multiply two polynomials together as fractions, go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own. Because remember, you guys, before we multiply, we got to do all this factoring. So we got to factor all the numerators, all the denominators, and then we're going to see what will cross out. So if you think you got that, go ahead and pause the video and fast forward to the end and see if you get it correctly. Okay, so this is my fraction 1. This is my fraction 2. And remember, you guys, before we combine anything, before we multiply straight across, we have to factor all this stuff. Okay, so we have to start getting used to factoring because we're going to factor all the time. Okay, so in the numerator here, if I have 3 terms, the factoring technique that we can use with 3 terms, you got 2 options. You have slide and divide or the quadratic formula. Be careful though, the quadratic formula will give you zeros. So if you do the quadratic formula, you do have to put the zeros back into factored form. And guys, honestly, the quadratic formula is not very efficient. Okay, after we have to start doing the quadratic formula 4 times in a row, it's going to start taking a really long time. So I highly encourage that you try to learn how to factor if you haven't learned yet, because it is so much faster, and mathematicians are always about being efficient. Okay? All right, so this one, I'm going to use slide and divide on that. Slide and divide. When we have 2 terms and we're subtracting, we can use a difference of squares on this one because we're subtracting, and I can square root both of those. So this will be a difference of squares. I'm going to abbreviate with DOS. Okay, this one has 3 terms, so again, I'm going to do a slide and divide on that one. Okay, and this one has 2 terms, and we're subtracting, and I can square root each of those. So this is also a difference of squares. Okay, so I'm going to do slide and divide on my numerators and difference of squares on my denominators. And again, if you think you know and understand factoring, I highly encourage that you try this on your own. Okay, so I'm going to start with the numerator of my first fraction, so I'm going to factor that thing. Okay, so let me write it out real quickly. So we have 2x squared minus 7x minus 4. All right, guys, so let's get going. We are going to slide the A to the C. Okay, which my A is the number in front of the x squared, which is 2, and my C is the last number, which is 4, or negative 4. Okay, so when I slide 2 to negative 4, I get negative 8. So this is my AC, or my slide. And remember, I'm trying to find 2 numbers that multiply to be AC and add to equal my B, which my B is the number in front of the x, which is negative 7. Okay, so don't forget, you guys, you slide. And by whatever you slide, you have to divide by at the very end. So I'm going to set that up. So it'll be good to go. So whatever I get in here, I'm going to be dividing the same number I slid over, which is the 2. So I'm just going to set it up and prepare myself for that. Alrighty, so 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 8 and add to be negative 7. You guys are so smart. I don't even know why I try anymore. So this is going to be negative 8 and positive 1. Negative 8 times 1 is negative 8, and negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. So remember, you guys, these numbers go directly in here. So this will be minus 8 and positive 1. All right, guys, and after this, we just have to simplify this thing down. So this is going to end up being negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, so x minus 4. All right, then here, 1/2 won't simplify down, but remember, we cannot have a fraction in factored form. So we're going to slide the 2 to the very front. So this will be 2x plus 1. All right, so the first fraction is factored in the numerator. And I'm going to write my factors already over here in the numerator, so I'll be ready to go. Okay, so now let's shift to the denominator, which is a difference of squares. So I have x squared minus 9. All right, guys, for a difference of squares, to get our a and c, we have to square root each term. Sorry, a and c. I was trying to square root it off the bat, you guys. What was I doing? Sorry about that. Ah, come on, white out. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so again, to find my a and c, I'm going to square root the first term, which is my x squared, and my second term, which is my 9. And don't forget, we leave the negative off. Leave it off. Okay, the square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 9 is 3. And finally, for difference of squares, the formula says you add the a and the c, and you subtract them. So a plus c is x plus 3. And a minus c is x minus 3. And bam, that one is factored. And I'm going to write my factors in the denominator while I'm at it. So I got x plus 3 and x minus 3. Awesome. All right, so now we got to switch gears to our second fraction. Okay, now my new numerator is all that. So I have 3 terms, so we're going to be doing slide and divide. So let me write that down real quickly. So we have 8x squared minus 28x plus 12. All right, and remember, if you can ever factor out a GCF first, that will always make your numbers smaller and easier to work with. So I'm going to factor out a GCF first, which, what's something that goes into 8? Negative 28 and 12. You guys are so smart. It is, in fact, 4. Okay, so we're going to factor out a 4 out of all 3 of those terms. So I'm going to divide all these by 4. Okay, so 8x squared divided by 4 is 2x squared. Negative 28x divided by 4 is negative 7x. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay, so now you guys, when I do slide and divide, I'm going to focus on this parenthesis. Okay, so I already know that I'm going to have a 4 out in front, so if you want to, you could go ahead and put a 4 at the very front, because I know our GCF always goes at the front. And that way I won't forget about my GCF, because poor GCF always gets forgotten about. Okay, so now let's start sliding and dividing. So I'm going to slide my A to my C. So my 2 times my 3 gives me 6. Okay, and we're trying to find 2 numbers that multiply to be AC and add to be B, which B is negative 7. Okay, so, and after that, remember you guys, you can already prep your answer. It's going to have 2 x's in it, and don't forget, whatever you slide by, you got to divide by it. Slide and divide. So the 2 is what I slid over, so that means I'm going to divide my final answer by 2. So I'm going to set it up. Okay, so 2 numbers that multiply to be 6 and add to be negative 7. I totally agree, you guys. It's negative 6 and negative 1. Oh, man. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6, and negative 6 times negative 6 plus negative 1 is negative 7. Okay, so these numbers, that's a negative 6, so I'm going to put a minus 6 in here. And that is a negative 1, so I'm going to put minus 1 in here. All right, guys, we just need to simplify, and then the numerator will be factored. Okay, so negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, so x minus 3. And 1/2 can't be simplified, but remember, we cannot have fractions in factored form. So we're going to take that 2 and slide it to the front. So it'll be 2x minus 1. And bam, we're in factored form, but don't forget to bring down your GCF. So I'm going to write all of that in the numerator of my second fraction. So we got an x minus 3 and a 2x minus 1. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little better. Sorry guys, I should have done that from the start. The demon cat's got me. Okay, we just have one more thing to factor and then we can start multiplying and crossing stuff out. I'm already pumped up to cross stuff out, so let's go. Okay, so our difference of squares we're going to use on the denominator. Alright guys, so let's get going. So we got 4x squared minus 1. Okay, and a difference of squares says we need to square root the first and last term, and that is our a and our c. And then it tells us all we do is add the a and the c and subtract it, and then we're done. Don't overthink a difference of squares. It's really not that bad. Okay, the first term is the 4x squared, so I'm going to square root that thing. And my second term is the minus 1, but I ignore the negative, so it's just going to be a 1. Alright, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 1 is 1. Okay, so then I just add them and subtract them, and I'm done. So I do my a term plus c term, so 2x plus 1, and then my a term minus my c term, so 2x minus 1. Bam, that guy is factored. So I'm going to write all my factors in the denominator. So we got 2x plus 1 and 2x minus 1. Alright guys, so now that we have finally factored all that, we now need to actually multiply, which is what the problem is all about. Remember you guys, when we multiply two fractions, we go straight across. Okay, so, and when we're in factored form, you guys, we basically just write all the factors together. Now, one thing. Okay, if you ever have a GCF or a number like this just kind of hanging out, typically we write it in the very front so we can kind of group our numbers together and our things with x's together. It's not wrong to put it in the middle, it just kind of looks a little awkward. That's all. Okay, so I'm just going to write all my numerators on one line. So x minus 4 times 2x plus 1. Okay, the 4 I'm going to put in the front so it's not awkward and weird. We don't want our 4 to, get bullied at school or anything. It can't be awkward. Okay, and then we have x minus 3 and 2x minus 1 all over x plus 3 times x minus 3 times 2x plus 1 and 2x minus 1. Alright, so we wrote all the numerators on one line and all the denominators on one line. And now we just need to simplify this down. So I'm looking for terms that are both in the numerator and the denominator. It can't be just two terms on one side. If there's two terms in the numerator or two terms in the denominator that are the same, they won't cancel out. They have to have one in the numerator and one in the denominator. So let's see what's going to cancel out. So let's see here, I have an x minus 4 here. No x minus 4 is here, so that's going to stay. Okay, I have a 2x plus 1 here and a 2x plus 1 here. Holy hot dog, it's going to get crossed out. Okay, we have an x minus 3 here, and I see one there. Look at that. Bam, bam. Okay, I have a 2x minus 1 here and a 2x minus 1 here. Holy hot dog, you guys. Okay, so for our final answer, we're going to write everything that was left over. So I have my 4, my x minus 4, and my x plus 3. So my final answer is 4 times x minus 4 all over x plus 3. And holy hot dog, isn't that exciting, you guys? All this up here secretly just simplifies to this, which is pretty cool. Guys, so this right here is my final answer. And again, since I'm in such a great mood, I'm going to put it in a cloud because I like clouds. So yay, this is my final answer.